Kia ora tātou. Kia ora, kia ora. Okay, we're a couple of minutes early, so we're going to start. And people will just join us if they want to. So the kaupapa for today is showcasing our rangahau. And we just wanted to show some of the ways that other whānau have published their rangahau, put it out into the public spaces, besides writing an academic article or doing a conference presentation. So you can see and maybe be inspired, ask some questions. So everybody has 5 minutes each. And then if we have a couple of minutes at the end, it might be time for questions. So I'm going to hand it over to our first speaker, who is Tu Williams.
Kia ora tātou, we only got 5 minutes, so I'll try and get everything covered in that time. Started back in 2012, ICF at that time. Myself and Heeni both applied for it. In terms of creativity, I can't sing, I can't dance. But one thing, I was brought up on reading books from my mother, so I really enjoy writing. And then the next thing, Shelley talked about it yesterday around what's your fire, what's your passion? And for me, our Māori rugby clubs is something that I'm very passionate about. So long story short, we got funding for that, and what we did was a case study on 2 Māori clubs. Māori rugby in Mairohe Bay Plenty is very strong. Our Māori rugby clubs are the hubs of the communities alongside marae and kura. So I thought, gee, there must be something there. So got approved, done it in 3 months, interviewing kaumātua, players, coaches, anyone involved with these 2 clubs, Waikite of Te Arawa and Te Teko of Mātātua. Following that, we knew we wanted to expand. There's actually 17 Māori rugby clubs in Mairohe, and there's still, you can see the benefits of the ones, communities that have them. So got that done that was outside of the wānanga, got funding to conduct that, and this is the end product. Ngā karapu Māori. I'll just bring an example up here. So the histories, dates, so we interviews as well as interviewing over 120 people. We also did, went to the rugby museum, things like that, archiving our local museums, and got the dates when they're established. Just remembering our earlier clubs, it wasn't too long after the land wars that some of these clubs were established, late 1800s. So that was a huge work, doing that on top of teaching at the wānanga as well, but very rewarding, and published that in 2020. Which led on to another kaupapa here. About 3 years ago, looking on MOE putting out applications for children's books. So put my head in the ring, put an application in, got accepted, and under the guidance of Kath and Heeni, if anyone's, yeah, they were awesome. They guided us through that process. Because we are, out of our interviews, we got a lot of stories from these clubs as well, local legends and pūrākau. Just a couple of pictures there. There's some here if anyone wants one, you can take one. Yeah, local illustrators such as Chance Makaire, Q Bidwa from all over the Rohe. So the MOE printed those this year to approximately 100 kura. Not only in the Bay of Plenty but throughout. All in te reo Māori, but we had to get a translator with the appropriate license to do that, and make sure that the reo was the reo aiwi of that certain area of Matakana Island or of Murupara, Ngāti Manawa. So, yeah, proud of this, these 2 kaupapa. And the first book was actually my thesis ended up being my thesis for my master's. So still up in the air where to go from here, but so got 45 seconds. I just want to mihi to all our wahine Māori. You fellas are carrying the flag. There's just so many of you presenting. Tāne mā kia kaha e hoa mā. You need to do our parts as well. And just in these last 30 seconds, couple of space interests, key areas that I'm interested at the moment is Māori masculinity, touch a little bit of that in here, and also models of leadership. Been in a couple of, I don't know where I'm going to go with that, but I'm sure the fire will lead me some way. Ka pai. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora tātou. Oh, got to right down. Can you hear me? Oh, well, kia ora, I'm Heeni Morehu. So, to mention that we both applied for the ICF funding to do Rangahau, and my output, I suppose, or the book that I published is this book. And this book came around from the death of my two eldest children. How it got into the wānanga stream though is we had a, what was she then? Kaiako Matua, and the Rangahau advocate at that time, Ellie Tuckey, and she knew that in my, times of sadness, I'd sit up all night and I'd write, because I just had to write and get everything out, because, it was hard to explain to people how I was feeling and all that stuff. So I'd write it, and she bullied me. She didn't guide me through this loving process. There was nothing loving about it. She was like, no, you just bloody need to. It's not about you. It's it. Other people need it. I was like, I don't give a... because in my mind, it's like, you want me to put my whole guts on a platter for the whole world. Oh, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing... Anyway, she got it. It took her a little while to get me to agree to give her just a snippet of the stuff that I used to scribble when I'd lay awake at night. So that's that's how this book came about. That was back in, I think, 2013 or 14, or roughly, yeah. Following on from this book being published, it sort of pushed me into the area of becoming an advocate for suicide and then grief as well, because one of my sons died, the oldest one from a car accident, and then the other one by suicide. So it's kind of, just by default I've ended up doing mahi on that side. All voluntary too. So it's been a journey, it's been a life-changing journey, and it's one that I appreciate now. And because Shelley, you were there too in the initial start of putting this all together, and I remember a couple of times we'd be sitting in the room and you didn't know how to talk to me because it was such a sad kaupapa, and so it was like, oh, we'll be all right, we'll get through it. It's just so encouraging, eh? And I'm just like, fuck, I don't want to do this. I don't want to. But that's because at that time I was thinking about myself. Now I don't. I'm able to take myself out of it and share whatever I can with whoever I can for the benefit of other whānau who are now faced with the same kind of struggles that we were. And we don't want that, and whatever little bit that we can do to awhi anybody, doesn't matter if you're Māori, it doesn't even, that's not even anything when you're working in this space with our whānau. So, so I have kind of like few roles, even though my paid job is a maid at Waifero, and then I skive off and I do other stuff with the suicide prevention thing. Lucky I got a good manager. lets me go. Oh, I've got to hui. I've got to go to Auckland. I've got to go to, yeah. But that's me. See, early. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Heeni, for sharing. It was moving. Yeah. So, kia ora, everyone. Ko Ellie toku ingoa.
Ko Mitra toku ingoa.
We are part of the Te Manawa Haukura team, but before we were part of this team, we did some mahi with Becky Kittle on a couple of Rangahau projects, and we're privileged to be part of the Imaginised Decolonised Cities team, which had a whole bunch of outputs or dissemination techniques, including books, Imagining Decolonisation, you might have seen it or read it, but some other outputs amongst a heap of outputs were perhaps non-conventional ones and included, for one, a board game, and for another, a currently named Aotearoa Urban Planning Toolkit. And both of these were, I guess, targeted at audiences that were start off as rangatahi, but quickly sort of increased to anyone who didn't necessarily have a research bent or any conscious understanding of what colonisation might mean in Aotearoa. So the aim was to provide a research output that was accessible to as many people as possible. The other part of the brief for a board game, which came from a few other people in the wider team who just happened to love board games and thought, hey, you guys, can we get you to design a board game, was that it had to be learnable and playable within an hour so that it could go into kura and be done in a class, an hour period. And this was for Mitra and I and our colleague, Joshon Elkington, this was such a fun work project where for a couple of days we sat and played board games. We tried to understand the mechanics of them, the amount of challenge and tension, but also fun and relaxation, and the different concepts that needed to be woven into. The creative process was research for us, and also the putting it together was our sort of creative outlet, because I could appreciate your comment too. Nor can I sing nor dance or anything like that. So, but we can do some digital design. So that's where our skills came into it. So the board game He Haerenga Ki Te Maunga was where it got to. We made 6 prototypes, and going into it, you think a board game, perhaps some cardboard, some cards. We built a little maunga, something. It should be pretty cheap, but it wasn't. So that's one thing about perhaps non-conventional methods of research dissemination. Per game, which you can see here, I think at a prototype level, it was about $400 a pop, which isn't a good business model for for games. And the sort of next level, which we looked into but haven't secured funding for yet, is to how to produce it en masse, which immediately gets shipped offshore. So you're looking at minimum 1,000 items at most. So there's a whole kind of commercialization stage if you sort of go in that direction. But as a prototype, it's pretty good, if I may say so myself. Oh, we've got a video. There we go. And I think Mitra's just passed some things around. So, yeah. So there was a lot of mahi from a heap of people from the Imagining Decolonised Cities team that went into all the questions on the cards. There was elements.
Especially on those colonisation cards, there was a lot of sort of personal experience poured into those scenarios.
And it's been a really interesting way of conveying those, what are personal experiences for a lot of people, into a game scenario where it can feel like it's not necessarily real as you play for the players. And so it can make it, the information and the discussions that are being prompted by the game, a lot more approachable for people who aren't confident speaking about pretty full-on concepts. The other one is the Urban Planning Toolkit, which is technically still in development. But again, this was looking at how can rangatahi or anybody be involved in the design of our cities in Aotearoa. And there are urban planning toolkits all over the world that look at, you know, where do we put the park bench and the trees and the homes and stuff. But what are the conversations that we need to be having in Aotearoa was the question. And so this was a starting point, but it started to look at, you know, physical items like, should there be a marakai somewhere? Should there be, you know, where can the kainga, papakainga be? How might it be orientated? And so we have a architectural spatial design background, so this is what was feeding this. But there's also the kind of non-tangible, like the smells. What smells can you be smelling? And sort of trying to prompt those conversations that are not what you can see directly on the street. I think there were questions. Is anyone holding a waka or a kainga? But some. Might have been slipped into a bag. No. But questions about, from memory, you know, who are the tupuna that should be recognised in this area, or what are the views to the maunga that are important and need to be highlighted.
And also sort of like, we had these little puzzle pieces that were sort of exploring what are the tapunua relationships spatially that should be close to each other or should be apart.
So again, yeah, this was a Rangahau dissemination technically, but with the idea that the dissemination of knowledge can contribute to conversations across the country about how we're designing cities with everyone, not necessarily just researchers. Kia ora.
Kia ora, hika. Just quickly, nothing flash, but achievable. Easy to do, Google site. Ne? Google site, he putunga. This was actually he mahi mo te tohu pairua we had to do for one of our assessments. Show our learning, he huri, hautaka huritau, so a reflective journal, but in a digital way, which is really cool because then you could show whakahua, you know, ngā mea katoa, hononga, and kaupapa. So one of my mahi, wari au te kaupapa, ko tōku reo, yeah, he kaupapa reo. But the first, to get the kōrero that I needed, conducted interviews. So I just put it up here. Oh, look, Beck's one's been taken down. Yep. But it was really cool for sometimes it's hard to put into kupu what went on in the process. But so for the assessor, for my kaiako, it was awesome for her to see the video. We just did it, just recorded a Zoom so that she could see the whole process and the kōrero, and that was really awesome. So that's what's awesome about doing a Google site. You can add all these things, put it on YouTube, link it back, and you can change it before you have to hand it in. Because some of these other things, because you're just showing the link, so you can always edit right until the last, oh no, ka pai. And I just added different whārangi for different kaupapa, raumi, I don't know, it's probably taken down, Te tihi aku mahi. How I got into the digital space was I'm a teacher, kaiako by trade, and at the time working for core education, how to integrate digital tools in the teaching and learning of the kura. And that time iPads came out, smartphones, kare ia rātou ngā kupu hou I te rawa. So we were like translating kupu on the dot, on the spot, on the dot. Meu ki te reo. And so atapaki, kia ora, mihi mai, huirangi, that, you can see how old it is when Skype was still used. And every week we had to do a reflective kōrero, and that was just an easy way to do. Another thing with our rangahau, we can do all the mahi, take us ages, but ko tētihi putanga, hea te hua o ngā mahi. He mea hei tuku I te mātauranga, intergenerational transmission of knowledge, ki ngā tamariki. So I was at Huia Publishers first as a resource developer, and then core education, so that's nearly 9 years of publishing experience. And one of the magazines we created was Takatūaki, I called it there, because it was all about climate change, sustainability was really in vogue at the time. And you can do things like interactive PDFs to make it fun and engaging. So we did all the rangahau before, but the putanga was for the tamariki. So and working with the tamariki for them to helping them become publishers. So the kōrero would help them put their stories together, and like hangarua was big in the kura at that time, so I was getting the tamariki to make something, and then they tell me what they did, and I just publish it, so that was really cool. And just recently, anei e tihi o ngā kaiwhaka Māori, he putanga no tēnā, whira, some other publishing work. He kupu nā te Māia, he kuhinga ruri nā Maya Angelou. So some of us from Te Pane Kiretanga, this was launched here, I konei, just over a month ago, just over a month ago. But there was a lot of rangahau that we had to do to ensure that we stayed true to the whakaaro of, Maya Angelou, heo. Tino mātanga I te ao tuhi rota. And then whakawhiti ki te reo Māori, put it into te reo Māori, me tō ake reo, me tō ake mita. So there's a whole lot of rangahau going on there. And then what was cool about this project is we also worked in pairs to introduce the other kai whakamāori. And so we had to rangahau there, tāwai, whakapapa, and then put it in a really, or try to, across the, mama tera, pai. Find out, they really go into, and particularly with someone you didn't really know, but there was just another lovely way to see the hua, and when we had the launch, we could bring a +1, so ko māwa ko taku māma tira, there was a lot of mother and daughters, tuakana teina were there, teachers, students, all sharing this kaupapa. Kia ora tātou.
Nei rata tēnā mihi kia koutou I tū kahanei, ki te kōrero mō ake rangahau, kaupapa rangahau. I tēnei wā, there is time for a couple of pātai, but it's just the manoeuvring of the microphones. If I could ask our beautiful Te Mihinga to come forward and help us with the microphones. Is there any pātai that we have a couple that we can pass around, or any comments? And while we're just looking around, I want to really mihi to Heeni.
Yes.
Yura saying she poured her whole grits out onto the thing. Some of her kōrero was really raw. Really raw. And if you're going through that at the time, it just might be what you want to hear and what you want to see. And so she's done some amazing mahi in that space. She's gone to places and people that she's never known she'd get to, and that's the other thing about your rangahau. You may never know where it's going to take you, and you may not even know who really needs it until that person receives it. So I remember taking a whole box of Heeni's books back to Tokoro to a suicide bereaved group of parents who were mourning their rangatahi. And my rangatahi were in that sensitive stage, but they were also mentoring rangatahi who were experiencing suicide ideation. So just being able to have something to koha and say, look, here's how one mum's coping with this and what she's going through, and it's okay to have distinct days. Just like it's okay to have beautiful days too. So just tēnā mihi tēnei kia koutou. Ahako, you got bullied into it. That's the other way. The rangahau doesn't always just come nice and gently to you and land in your lap. Sometimes you get told, Phil was saying before, that we've got a lot of people writing and publishing. How do we get them to do that through the wānanga? Because there's a lot of people out there doing some mahi in the wānanga. How do we get the wānanga to support that and get them to come through? So anybody got a kōrero, anybody got a pātai? I know we're in the last leg of our hui taumata. Maybe we just want to enjoy just being in the moment. And if you've got any little wee pieces that belong to the board game, please get them back. Just leave them on the table. You don't need to say who you are. Just put it back. And we would appreciate that. Oh, here comes one.
Although people mix us up all the time.
Oh, sorry.
How considerations when writing a kid's book that you might not think of?
Hey, yeah, pātai pai tērā. Say the level of the reo, well, even though we had a translator, they had to pitch it at that intermediate age. Because it was a journal and there was about 9 stories in there. Gee, I forgot what the word is when someone help me. The layout of, so that it all ends on a even page, heaps of little things like that. Appropriate images, we had to edit a couple of images. Just quickly, an example, the Matakana barge, if everyone knows Matakana Island. So we told a story about coming onto the mainland every weekend to play rugby and then going back, and you can imagine what sort of activities may happen on the way back, festivities, so we just edited it to make it more... we asked the author, the illustrator to keep that in mind, when drawing the pictures.
Tērā pē. Me whakakapi tēnei wahanga o tērā. So you've got a little bit of time to be able to move to the last session of the day, then we're all back in here for the closing and purapuraki. And some of our whānau got to run up the stairs, grab their bags and get on the bus to head home. So if I don't see you before you go, you've been amazing. We have loved having you. Thank you for bringing our dream to life and helping us to make this a reality, and enjoy the last part of the day. Hei kona.
Tēnā koutou.